And we
She's on mute.
Myra's on mute. Okay. She's doing it. A few more people coming in. So welcome everybody. This is the 62nd Kwaai Day. Oh my word. My name's Reza Rassool, Chair CEO of Kwaai. We're all here together to democratize AI. How hard can it be? Look, in the last year and a half since we've started this movement, we've had weekly public meetings. This is the 62nd. We've got a guest speaker today, Larry Namer, the founder of E-Entertainment and numerous other ventures. Larry's coming back. He's a second-time offender now. He's coming back to as a guest speaker on this weekly show. Is it a show? On our weekly meeting to tell us what's new in his world and what's going on in gosh, there's so many initiatives. I was watching a podcast which was kind of raunchy, and there's many other stuff. Look, let's not waste any more time. There's a whole agenda of updates of work groups and so on coming up, but let's hand it over to Larry. Larry, the floor is yours, and feel free to present if you want to do that.
Yeah, and welcome back.
Thank you. Well, maybe what I'll do is I'll just kind of update you on, what I've been doing. But E obviously, is probably my most well-known thing. It's in 142 countries now, arguably the biggest influencer of pop culture in the world. We've done some good things and some things that people want to kill me for, like the Kardashians. But it's the only TV network that's on a global scale that was ever started by a person as opposed to a media company. And I think it's still that way to this day. And, the value from... We were the VC's dream. We raised $2.5 million after 3.5 years, and we've turned it into a $5+ billion company. So that one's the good. But I've gone off and developed media companies in Russia, and now China. I have one in China now. I think we're still the only Western company that's allowed to function as a media company in China. And we do everything from TV, film, internet content, immersive, particularly the art exhibits, like if you guys have seen immersive Van Gogh and Klimt in 100 years of Disney animation. We don't develop those. We buy the rights out from around the world and we present them in China. Everything we do in China is in Mandarin, so that's one of the reasons they haven't thrown us out of there. And but when COVID hit, I started doing stuff in the U.S. again because I kind of swore the U.S. off for a number of years, just because I thought big media was taking over too much control and it was impossible to get new and fresh ideas on. But with COVID and then the emergence of the streaming services, it's actually brought back some really good platforms for creative development. So I've been doing stuff here. And most of what I've been doing in the US, I have a big series at Netflix called Empress, which is all about the first and only woman ever to rule China. And that's, if you think of Game of Thrones, but set it in China 1,200 years ago, that's kind of what it's like. And that goes into production in January. And but the other stuff we've been doing all has a social impact component to it. And what we found is with the rise of the streamers and then even the big cable companies turning to streaming, HBO Max and those folks, their in-house development costs are so high. So in order to get them to develop something versus when they come to us and ask us to develop something, we probably do it for half of what it costs them. and yet have the same, have a track record that's as good, if not better, than the one that their in-house teams have. So we've been developing stuff. We started with financial wellness for millennials because kids in school don't really learn much about real life anymore. And that went to Chicken Soup for the Soul. And then we've developed another one called Conscious Parenting, which goes to Amazon, which is all about trying to be a parent in today's very complex world. Being a parent is very different today than it was when my mom had me. And then we're doing another one called Uncancelled, all about cancel culture. We're basically giving platform to people who have been canceled, rightfully or wrongfully. We let the audience make the judgment, but a hard-hitting journalist the opportunity either tell their truth or their side of the truth, or sometimes it's just a matter of apologizing, saying, hey, I did something when I was 20 and now looking back, I realize I shouldn't have done it that way and I'm sorry. We don't really have those things available to people now. And then we've got a nighttime talk show that's going to go on Netflix in January called Natasha After Dark, which is not your typical talk show in aid that it's a woman host, where nighttime TV in the US is dominated by all men. But it's not a promotional, it's not so Tom Cruise, tell me about your next movie. It's really about motivation, inspiration. And Natasha is she's an interesting gal. She comes out of the UK. 7 years ago was a single mom on the streets of London. Went and did OnlyFans to feed her kid and put a roof over their head and stuff like that. And she totally owns it. She says, I did what I had to do to feed my kid. And particularly under women under 40, they love her. She's got 16.5 million social media followers and stuff. And now she's living in the US and she's life coaching will.i.am and Steve Aoki and lots of celebrities and stuff. So that we were going to go on in the summer, but she was pregnant, so we put it off till January. Doing an award show in next year in February called the Nifties, which is kind of a celebration of NFTs and blockchain and crypto and AI, and recognizing all the things that our award shows, the Emmys and the Oscars, just make believe don't exist. And lately we moved into the podcast world. The first one we're doing is called Stall Talk, which is really it's kind of a metaphor for the camaraderie among women that men don't necessarily get or share. And it all started with, when you go out for dinner with a few couples and one woman says, I got to go to the restroom, and they all get up and go, and the guys are sitting at the table going, what the hell are they doing in there? What are they talking about for 15 minutes and stuff like that? But so it's not really about what goes on in the stall, but it's a metaphor for that camaraderie among women. And so we put together, actually, we just dropped the first episode on Tuesday. It's on YouTube. And so that's going to be a weekly, and, we've already produced the second episode and ready to do the third and stuff like that. So that's coming along nicely. But, for the most part, that's pretty much what I've been up to.
Fantastic, Larry. I just was watching Stall Talk. It's this boomer host and the Gen Z host. These two women try to find common ground and talking about the different takes on the world and the mores that they grew up with. Very interesting. Tell us more about that. What gave you the idea for that?
Well, like I say, it was me just noticing, going, why are us guys sitting at the table and they're in the bathroom, and then the women come out of the bathroom and one of them will go, oh my God, I met the girl who has the latest in MAC Cosmetics. And look, she did my eyes. And I'm sitting there going, really? You let someone who you just met touch your eyes with, you know? But again, there's this camaraderie among women of all generations that us guys don't necessarily share, nor do we get. So it's I really have women of four generations. So Jenny Lee Harrison, who was one of the stars of Dallas and Three's Company, she's the older one, and she's like the aunt that most gals have that have already lived through all the stuff, that is willing to talk to the girl about things that she's not necessarily comfortable talking to the mom about. And then you have Cass, who's this real Gen Z person who I sometimes I think comes from a different planet, um, who speaks in a language that literally on the show we actually try and translate what she says because some of it is just beyond the English language. And then we have another gal she's 26, but she works for the largest influencer marketing agency in the country, and but she's the youngest woman there, so she's really the girl boss who talks about what it is like to be a woman in a male dominated company, trying to maintain your femininity while working your way up the ladder and stuff like that. And then the last one is Ivana, who's a stylist, celebrity stylist. She styles shows like uh, Selling Sunset, and she styles most of the Adidas athletes and stuff. But she's a 38-year-old single gal from the UK. So, but her thing about style is really the personalization of it. It's not like, okay, this is the right color for you, but she really digs into like, how do you dress to bring out the real you or the best you and stuff like that. And she's also 38 years old, single, trying to figure out dating in LA, which is a challenge for most women and stuff. So between the four of them, you've got this wide range of opinions, and so they'll take things whether they be in the news or just things like relationships and stuff. And you kind of hear the way women of different generations think and about different issues and stuff, and it's pretty fascinating. So we dropped the first episode. Seems to be doing really well. It's one of those things that people watch and they go, "Oh my God, that's such a simple idea. How come somebody hasn't done it already?" Which always lets me know that I'm on the right track. But other than me, it's entirely female. I help them get it on the air, and then I've learned to get out of the way. And so it's all women, run by women now. And I just help them get guests and stuff because I have access to a lot more stuff than they can. But and we love the podcast world because it lets us take ideas that a little bit off the beaten track, that if you pitch to the networks or the streamers, they just don't get. I mean, even when I go into a network with a new idea, I'll pitch them something and they'll go, "Well, what's it like?" And I'm like, "It's not like anything. It's a new idea. It's fresh."
Right.
And it's frustrating to go through that. So by doing them this way, there are no gatekeepers. We get them up there. We get audience reaction. We get to refine it and stuff like that. At some point, maybe we'll take it to a network and say, "Hey, you keep telling us that women under 40 don't watch television, but maybe it's because you don't program anything that they want to watch. And by the way, take a look at this show. You're running The View, which was something that, my grandmother used to watch, and maybe you should be programming to, a new generation of women." So it gives us a lot of creative freedom and stuff. So we're doing that. We're going to be doing a show that I'm doing actually with some people out of the military, all about support for military suicide thing, which is more of a public good thing than a profitable thing. But it's a subject that once you dig in, it's amazingly tragic what is going on with our military, active and veterans. And, the number of suicides literally every day is mind-boggling. So something to try and help at least provide information and support and let people know they're not alone and there are places, what are the resources they can go to for help and that stuff. And so that, that's kind of it. That's what we've been up to.
Larry, we got a question. Myra's got a hand up. Myra, unmute and then.
Not so much of a question, but like, wow, I am so in awe of all your projects, especially the fact that you have so many about women. I mean, I feel like the last show, you think of Golden Girls, you think of Sex and the City, and now watching Sex and the City back, it's a little cringy. So to have a show about women of different generations, I'm so excited to watch that.
So yeah,
yeah,
I think a lot of people have kind of, jumped over that and stuff, and for whatever reason, and again, it's not so don't take this wrong, and it wasn't a conscious effort on my part, but I've always been about I hire the best and smartest people for every job opening I have. And, my companies are, weirdly enough, we're 80% women in the C-suite. And it wasn't a conscious thing we were going to fill C-suite with women. It's just we hire the smartest people we can. And then what's happened, and I've talked to people why this developed the way it is it's become such a comfortable place for women to work that when there's an opening, they tell their friends, and we get all these smart friends come in first. And, so literally now I think we're like 81% female.
Wow. Okay. So Debbie posted the link for everyone in the chat, the link to Stall Talk, the Stall Talk podcast, the first episode's in the chat. So if you want to catch up on that, that's great. Larry, I've got a question for you. The Nifties, tell us more about that and what relevance you think there might be for Kwaai at the Nifties.
Sure. So again, my relationship with traditional Hollywood has always been a little bit rocky. They don't like what comes out of my mouth. But, I look at this and, first let's start with geography. It used to be when I got into business, if you wanted to be in it, you had to be in Hollywood, or LA. And it would, if I would do a business plan and I would do financials, way back when I got involved, you would weight the financials 95% US and 5% other. You didn't even give other countries a name. It was just the rest of the world was other. But now you look at the way things have changed. Before, because of technology and costs and all kinds of reasons, Hollywood was the center of the media world. I could take my cell phone today and fly to Nairobi and make a movie on my iPhone. It's changed so dramatically. You have great stuff coming out of Korea and Israel and the UK, and Germany has got good stuff now. So though it's really changed. The US now is not 95% of the media world in terms of revenue. It's only 30%. But yet you look at our award shows here, and you take the Oscars, and we have one category, best foreign film, and I'm going, what is a foreign film? It doesn't make any sense anymore. I said, number one, they got to recognize the geography has changed. Then you get into the technology. Everybody's fighting like, oh, AI, we're not going to let it happen, and stuff like that. And I'm going, that's so wrong. I mean, you got to have things in place so that bad people can't do bad things with it, or at least there's penalties for doing bad things. But you can't stop technology from marching on. When cavemen used to paint on the side of a cave, and that used to be art, and then somebody invented canvas and paint and oil paint, and the cavemen weren't very happy. But you know what? It existed. People who own horse ranches, didn't want to see combustion engines in cars, but we've got them, and stuff like that. Technology that has a lot of good to it will overcome those kind of things. a good example, I work with some folks in the Writers Guild when, everybody was striking for, AI will not replace us and, doing that dumb stuff in the streets. I work with writers. So if you were to come to me with an idea for a TV series, it used to take me to kind of pencil it out and going, okay, what could it be? It would take me 5 days to kind of come up with the rough, what is it, and create a PowerPoint based on it. Now, I've been using AI for literally since the first day it was available. And I could do that same level of presentation, same level of research and development and stuff like that. It literally takes me 30 seconds on ChatGPT 4. And it's not 100%, it's 85%. So then I spend an hour with it and I clean it up. So now in 1 hour, I'm doing what used to take me 5 days. And I try and talk to people in the Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild and go, you've regained time for which that's the one finite thing we all share. How can you not like that? Now, getting to, if I create something in an hour that used to take me 5 days, if I could still get paid that same rate, gee, I'm thrilled because now I can spend more time with my grandkid. I could do more of these and make more money. I could learn how to speak Spanish, and I've regained that time. How could you not love that stuff? But so the Nifties are really meant to deal with a lot of my pet peeves there. So another one, you look at Woodstock '69. By all accounts, there were 500,000 people who went to Woodstock. But yet when Harris did a poll, there were 20 million people who claimed they were there. So how do you prove who was really there and who wasn't? But what we're doing for the Nifty Awards is, in order to watch it, you got to buy an NFT. And the NFT, gets recorded on the blockchain, so it becomes irrefutable proof that you were part of that first episode. But we're putting out the Nifty Awards not on a broadcast platform, but actually it's Zoom on steroids. We're up to now, I think, 570,000 simultaneous Zoom feeds, which is even more than Zoom could do. And they're trying to figure out how we did it, but we're not telling them. But by doing it that way, so number one, everybody would buy the NFT, and depending on, and making them really cheap. It's like $1 for the pre-show and $1 for the post-show and $2 for the main show. So, for $4 you get to watch the whole thing. But in countries, and it's a little deceptive because in countries like China, where you can't stream directly into the home, I dropped one feed off at a Chinese platform and they redistribute it to 10 million homes. Same thing in North Korea and Iraq, Iran, and Turkey and stuff like that. So, we'll have 20 million viewers of the award show all around the globe. And then it's recognizing people who have done good stuff in NFTs and crypto and blockchain and AI and those things. And but one of the more fun things we're doing is the host is a male and female host, and they speak English. But because you're coming in on a Zoom feed, and we know your IP address, so I'm using AI. So in France, when you watch the show is actually presented there in French. We're up to 37 languages now, and using AI to manipulate the facial muscles so that when the host is speaking French, it doesn't look like bad dubbing. It's the host is speaking French. In Spain, the host speaks Spain Spanish. In Mexico, he speaks Mexican Spanish, and so on. And like I say, we're up to 37. I think by the time we launch, we'll be a little over 40 languages. And then
Larry, you've got a question from Afshin Beheshti.
Yeah, hi Larry. Thanks. All interesting stuff so far. Actually, I wanted to go back to one of your things you talked about for the suicide, the military show. Do you have I'm a scientist, background in science, so everything I go back to is science. I mean, there's one thing we've saw correlations to, potential biomarkers that could be causing after traumatic events or traumatic brain injury to make them higher susceptibility. So it's really nothing that they're, emotionally, that it's due to some trauma that's happened and physically, like biologically, the things change in their body that maybe cause them to be most susceptible to suicide or that. So I don't know if you're touching that or your other shows, how much science is involved. I'm sure you have, I've seen some of them. I'm sure you have some science involved and when is appropriate. So the question is that, how much science are you putting in there and how and like with the Kwaai, for example, there's some scientists here and there's a lot of AI folks here. So it's kind of neat to see if there's any overlap with what we're doing in your shows.
Yeah, the idea is to present everything in a non-biased way and just going, you folks are smart enough to decide what best fits into your life and your thing. But here are the things that are available to you. And again, a lot of it has to do with just the letting people understand they're not alone. It's, whether they feel that way or they're living with a relative or friend that is struggling and stuff like that. It's that isolation, which we hope the show will overcome by bringing people together and go, hey, we've gone through this, we could help you. And whether it be through science or just being through compassion.
Thanks, Larry. We got one. Let's make this the last question. Zachary, you've got your hand up.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Reza. Hey, Larry, thank you for your time. Really, really cool. I just have a creative question. I heard in the beginning of your talk, you talking about the Game of Thrones, but in China 1,200 years ago.
Yeah.
Where do I watch that? That sounds awesome.
It's going to be on Netflix. It actually won't hit till 2026. It's a big, think of the scope of Game of Thrones, but it's about Empress who's the first and only woman ever to rule China, and so it's her rise from into the palace, and then marrying the emperor, and he dies, and then she marries the son, and he dies.
Yeah,
so
she's
it's all
the
that
Empress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you for
So
that.
it's all that kind of stuff, and it's going to be on Netflix, and it'll go on in 26.
Amazing. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Larry. We've got a packed agenda. Now I'm going to ask Myra if you can get us back on track. Thanks, Larry. Larry, there's stuff I want to follow up with you afterwards. I think I sent you a pitch. The idea was called America's Got Brains. I'd like to follow up with you separately on that.
Sure. I'm going to be in LA for the month of October, so I'm around.
Okay. Well, look, we can probably then grab some coffee or something. Okay. Thanks so much, Larry.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye. Wow. Okay. Well, gosh, that was Larry Namer.
Yeah, he's like, I'm out.
Yeah. Somehow. Okay.
Did you update the work group?
I did update a minor thing, and it wasn't. Yeah, no. I mean, the slide you've got showing is fine. I think let's get a work group update from the usual suspects. Let's go with the front end with the assistant. If Balaji or Cyan or Roy are ready to speak, tell us what's going on. Or Annie. Annie, get your gun. Maybe you want to tell us what's going on the front end. Thank you.
From our side, we have been working in integrating the sharing. Soon we are going to be able to share our assistant. And also, we're still working on integrating the users. That is like some feature that I think Robert started before. So
Yes.
we are still on that. Yeah.
So let's just, for the context for everyone, the thing that you see on the website is called the proof of concept, the POC. That is code that was largely developed by Balaji in Q1. Since then, we've been working on the beta. The economics of running the POC it costs about $2,000 a month. You light up a server in AWS, and it can host maybe one or two bots, and that bot you're paying that $2,000 a month bill to AWS, whether it's being used or not. What we've developed since then, and it's basically a multi-tenant solution. So that server that you light up can now host multiple bots, 1,000 bots. So 1,000 to 1 cost saving from hosting in AWS. And we've made other cost improvements by partnering with a data center called iBridge and a vendor called Swiss Vault for shared storage and shared compute to host, to provide infrastructure for our beta. So we've made advances in the front end, but we've also made dramatic leap forward in the operating system, the Pi OS. And maybe I can ask Sam to give us an update on where we are with Pi OS. And Sam, feel free to give an update also on your OSI investigation as well.
Yeah, okay. Right, so you guys saw my speech, so we'll start there since it's fresh because they just had the town hall. I'm just off that. This is the open source initiative, had the town hall where they announced the release candidate of the open source AI definition, which is based on the draft 0.0.9. And they did factor in, they used voting, and I went and looked at the votes and found there were some issues with the way that they tabulated the votes, which I documented and discussed on the call last week. They've relied heavily on the model openness framework, which kind of, the citations basically weren't in the source. So they're kind of referring to that constantly, but it's not really, it's not saying what they're kind of implying, but it says that they need to be more open in order to protect the 4 freedoms, basically. And so the release that is, what's likely to be released at All Things Open on the 28th of October is very substantially better, but still not good enough to protect those freedoms to use, study, modify, and share open source systems like Pi OS. Pi OS is software, right? So you've got code, the model or weight and data are the three three legs of the stool. So they've got the code, they've got the weights, like weights, think like llama, but they're missing the data, right? So it's a two-legged stool is my argument. So this more applies to like the models that we would load up into Pi OS. So yeah, good progress, not quite good enough. We do have a commitment that they'll keep looking at it. The open source definition from 20 years ago is on version 1.9. So hopefully they'll realize that more needs to be done and they'll tighten that up, particularly if they see it being abused. The challenge is that it's easier to kind of start with a more ambitious definition and then make it more liberal or more permissive than what it is to start permissive and having every man and his dog calling their thing open source AI and then trying to say, well, actually, no, we've changed our mind. You can't call it open source AI. So that's kind of where we're at there. In terms of so we got to the point where the release candidate came out a few days ago. And then so I spent a couple of days after that working on actually coding again, because I've had a few less productive weeks than usual, thanks to all of this with the more important and urgent, I think, or at least more urgent issue with open source AI. So I've been going through and looking at the pull requests and integrating them, particularly the one from Robert on passkeys. And so there's a demo of the passkey integration. So you can just click and it sets up a kind of almost one-click login to the system, which is good, and made quite a few changes there that improve the system and how we do things like storage of config items, which will help the folks like Jeff at iBridge to actually deploy the thing into production. So that's, it's been quite a productive week, and I'm going to crack on now with the multi-environment support and so on.
Great. Thanks so much. It was good to see a demo on Tuesday of where the whole system is. The milestone that both teams, the front end team, the Pi Assistant team, and the Pi OS team are aiming towards is to get an instance of the assistant and running on Pi OS, but running in the iBridge data center. Once we've got that, that's going to allow everyone internally to kick the tires on the latest version of the Pi chatbot, and you'd be able to create your own chatbot. That's the cool thing. You'll be able to build your own bot and have that running in this multi-tenant environment. We're going to stay in that sort of internal testing mode maybe for a couple of weeks, and then we're going to release it. We'll release it into beta. There are 30 universities and colleges waiting for the software. They've signed up for the beta. So then we'll move it into this beta program, and that'll be a phase we're going to be in for maybe a quarter, maybe 3 months, after which we will release it for general availability. The purpose of the beta is to get feedback, is to get many, many more people kicking the tires on it, but in a very controlled environment, in the environment of a university campus where the membership is controlled, the people who can create bots, and the specific use cases of the chatbot is also well constrained. We think we're going to learn a lot about what features and functions work, what features are missing. We're going to learn a lot about the scalability of the platform. How does this cost scale? How does the performance scale? Are we having performance bottlenecks? Is it a network bottleneck? Is it a storage scaling issue? All of that's very exciting. Thank you so much for a volunteer workforce being able to work together on this mission and to get us to the point where we can deliver personal AI. This is AI that you can own and operate, AI that's going to be free, AI that respects your data. It's not AI that is eavesdropping and spying on you, trying to find another way to monetize you better by getting you to send your data up to their cloud. This is a different take of AI, and it's a sort of take that only a nonprofit can do, a nonprofit volunteer workforce. And we fancy ourselves as the Linux of AI, maybe the Linux of personal AI. And once we get through the beta and we release it for general availability, we're going to be inviting for-profit entities to build assistance, build extra additional capabilities to the Pi assistant. That might be a financial capability. We call these abilities. A financial ability, a calendar planning ability, a healthcare ability. These are all extensions to a personal AI that respect the privacy of your data. It's not asking you to send the data up to somebody else's cloud where they're going to build a better and faster, a better and AI system and train on your data. So look, we are on a mission, and I'm glad that we're all participating in this. Myra, why don't we move forward? I was going to give an update on where we are with grant funding. Look, last week we met a fantastic first goal of submitting our first National Science Foundation grant application. We took it right to the last minute. Our president, Afshin Beheshti, then sent me a note saying, "Great job in submitting your first grant application, but know that it's a very competitive space, and Kwaai does not have the credibility to be the recipient of a grant yet." So we then strategized. After I was a bit hurt, I then strategized with Afshin and with Doc Searles on how we can approach grants. We got a funnel of about $40 million worth of grant applications to go for. And is it credible for Kwaai to apply for those directly? I think probably not. I think we're going to apply through an existing credible recipient. So those will be lead colleges and universities that have already been recipients of NSF grant funding and other federal grant funding. And we'll start off as a sub-awardee or as a contractor, and let's get some track record of having been good custodians and good recipients of that grant funding. And then later on, we'll have the credibility to apply on our own behalf. Afshin, maybe you want to say a word or two on that subject.
Yeah. No, thanks. Yeah, I mean, not that I want to defend myself a little bit. Not that Kwaai doesn't have the credibility, we do, but on paper, grant wise, there's a whole some people here have applied for grants, it's a game, you can think of grants as sort of the mafia, right? When you're outside of the club and mafia, it's harder to get in, but once you start getting the credibility as like the AI kings or what do you want, or we don't want to use king, we're actually democratizing AI. So not AI kings, but AI experts, right? The people who are going to be turned to, then that's the key. And usually, let's say in academics, as like someone Diego and others know here in academics, that's your credibility is a grant writing is gauged by your publications, right? The more publications you have in the scientific peer-reviewed literature, the more, of course, now here is a whole different playing field. So we will hopefully get some publications out with like what Diego's doing and what others can do. But the bread and butter mainly here is what we produce and give to the public, which is not necessarily peer-reviewed publication. So the way around that is what Reza just exactly said is we start getting grants and producing, and then through those grants, your partners are going to, academic partners will publish and have your names as an author on the papers, which is fine,
Right.
And then through that, then you're set. Then after, let's say, a couple of these grants, then Kwaai is now the central player as on all the radars of all these government agencies, and you could be the lead one, and it'd be a lot easier. Once you get one, it's easier. You're part of the mafia now. The NSF or NIH.
Yes, exactly. So look, 45 million is in the funnel for US federal grants. There might be about 40 to 50 million available in the EU. We're not eligible for that yet. We do have an EMEA chapter. In order to be eligible to apply for those, we need to incorporate within the EU. So that's another step we're taking forward. We had the first discussions with Christian Randieri, the director of the EMEA chapter, to say, okay, that's what we want to do. And so we'll start looking at those. And this could be a very significant funding avenue for us. Look, Kwaai needs to become self-sufficient. An organization that is going to be vibrant and strong and a credible alternative to the monopolizing forces in AI needs to be self-sufficient and not continuously going cap in hand to the big vendors, frankly, the ones who we are critiquing. So we need to become self-sufficient.
Can I throw one more thing in here?
Sure.
Just quickly. Is one thing to keep in mind too for people who are not familiar with the grant process. Once Reza has sent in these grants, it'll go through a review process, and most likely what will happen is you submit one now, by next summer you'll hear that if you got a good score, which most of the time you will get your first grant rejected, but if you don't, that means the funding will come in next fall. So keep that in mind. That's the other part with academic funding. It is a while. So a better route is if a nice rich donor comes out and says, here Reza, here's a big check. But that might not happen. So the grant route, you have to be patient, and that's everyone here to know that when you apply for a grant, it'd be a year later before if you get funded, you'll get the funding. So just keep.
Well, we're in it for the long game, and so we're playing this long game, and this is not the flash in the pan for-profit startup that, hey, frankly, I've been involved in throughout my career, where you go up and down Sand Hill Road with your PowerPoint presentation and raise your funds that way. This is a very different game that we're playing, and it's new to me, frankly, and I'm thankful for Afshin's guidance on this. Okay, Myra, why don't you get us on track, and let's hear from new member voices.
I think we had Asit Patel had his hand up.
He did.
I did, yeah. I apologize. My question was regarding the grant, wondering what amount are we looking for? And I am aware of some grants in the state of Illinois. So I'm in Illinois. I just recently left my law firm and I started a AI legal tech company. And I found several grants that were fairly easy to obtain, but they weren't large amounts, ranging from 75,000 or less. So it may not be worth.
All of these are useful. I mean, small amounts of grants to maybe fund a conference. Those are those are more gettable, and I'd love to speak with you outside. I think we've We've started to get a grant writing machinery together. The good thing about it is once you've written one grant, it's painful initially. You can repurpose the content for the grants. So I see, yes, please.
I mean,
Reach
even the
out.
smaller, but even the smaller grants could pay for, like, what, let's say some research for tokens, right? Things like that.
Right.
So that's very useful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the timing is fortuitous. Actually, I think Kwaai has the hackathon event happening in about 2 weeks here in Chicago, and the folks that make the decision for granting this money will actually be around. I can invite him to come attend, and he could meet some of the folks and get firsthand experience of what the money would go towards. So
Fantastic. Okay. I see. Let's talk offline. Thanks very much. So new member voices, that'd be great to hear from people that have not spoken, but also people that have been away for a while. Let's say people that have been out of the country and just returned recently. You know who I mean. You know, I'm talking about you. We'd like to have a trip report.
Hi, everybody. I'm glad to be back. Glad to be back with Kwaai. I was kind of around, but not that much. So officially, I guess today I'm reincorporating, and I have to catch up with Reza and with Myra to see where we're at. I know you guys have accomplished, believe it or not, when you take a step back and you come back a lot, right? Just in the last 2 months, I see how much has been done by a group of people who are honestly very dedicated, I think. And, you know, Reza, I think this is part of what needs to be maybe included when you're writing the grants, like our branding and what makes us different, right? Because all I see is how people are feeling in the industry very let down. Case in point, look at Sam, right? Like the guy is fighting for one thing, but then he's encountering completely something else. So I feel like people who've been in the industry for a long time are being split in the AI world. And if we're truly going to provide what we say we are, then we're going to be that kind of, we should be standing out from the rest, but we should be able to tell them how exactly. And that's what I noticed from afar. Like, this is me taking a step back and saying, there's so much going on. People are being thrown AI every which way, but now they're starting to be more cautious, right? Somebody says they're open, they're not open, they're closed. The other person, so, right, like this.
Right. Yeah, open washing. So
well, I feel that's in marketing, yeah.
That's great. Well, welcome back, Debbie. Looking forward to having you more involved. And there's a whole heap of work that we put in a pile and say, okay, Debbie will deal with that when she gets back.
Thanks. I'm back. All right.
Okay. I'd like to hear, if there's no other hands up, I'd actually like to hear from Richard Witt. Richard, let's put you on put the spotlight on you. Your new book is out. Feel free to talk about whatever you want to talk about Glia and the rest.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you, Reza. Good to see everybody. Hope you can see me okay. I'm doing a little multitasking this morning, but yeah, well, Reza, first, thanks to you. You provided an awesome quote in support of the book in advance of its publication. It's coming out formally next week on Amazon. It's called Reweaving the Web. And the book, in addition to that, also points to Kwaai as an excellent example of the kind of governance of AI technology that we need in the world. So you all get an appropriate shout out there. Yeah, I'm excited for the book. What it really does is it paints a picture of what's wrong with the web today. But as Reza and I have talked about, and others of you, I'm sure are aware, most of what happens in the conversations around, the internet, the web, the challenges we see sort of start and end at the problems and don't really get to solutions. So the book is really intended to provide a solution set. The two elements that I present there that I'm most interested in seeing in the world. One is the human governance layer, which for me is a set of for-profit companies that are net fiduciaries. So they basically take on the role of a intermediary that an ordinary individual or small businesses and others can trust. And because they operate under the common law fiduciary duties of care and loyalty towards us, which means don't harm us, but also means don't have a conflict of interest and promote my best interests. And I've created an alliance, the GliaNet Alliance. Kwaai is a member there. And again, thank you, Reza, for your early involvement with that. of about 20 for-profit companies, mostly small startups, but they all have a common vision, which is we can do better than Zuckerberg. That's sort of the mantra. But particularly, they see it as a market differentiator. If you take on this notion of being a fiduciary, yes, it's an obligation, it's a responsibility, but it also creates a way that you can elevate yourself above the rest of the market. People look at you, and consumers, again, early days with many of these companies, respond very favorably when they see that that is the way you operate in the world, as opposed to, unfortunately, the way most web companies interact with their user base. So that governance structure, and then partnering that with technologies that give us empowerment, things like what Kwaai is doing in terms of creating an operating system for agential bots, not just the OpenAI version, not a co-pilot. As I say, it's not a co-pilot, I'm still sitting in steerage. So that's not really the model. The model should be an agent that is trained on me, that represents me, that this intermediary, whether it's a fiduciary base or something else, helps me as an ordinary consumer. It gives me that trust and support that I need, and accountability when things go wrong. So that combination of human governance and then the empowering technology, to me, is one approach towards how to make the web a better place. The book is about that. The GleanNet Alliance is an attempt to get out there and make it a market-based approach, working with Kwaai and a number of other entities. So kudos to what you all have been doing here so far, and looking forward to more ahead.
Thanks so much, Richard. Richard, do we see you at IIW? Are you planning to come the end of the month?
I will be there. IIW coming up in a few weeks. I'll also be there for VRM Day. So that's Doc Searles. He does it every twice a year when we have the event down at the Computer History Museum. I know Kwaai is going to be there. I've got a little 10-minute vignette to talk about the GleanNet Alliance that afternoon. So very much looking forward to being there. Hopefully seeing some of you folks there as well.
Yeah, we want to be there in force. So I'm posting in the chat the link to the Eventbrite tickets. Look, the tickets aren't expensive. Spend the money to go. Spend maybe a day there, or come for multiple days, all the way from the 28th right through, I think it's 28th is the Monday.
Yeah.
And that's Project VRM Day. So that's Doc Searles' slot. And then IIW is 29, 30, 31. And we're going to be there, and look forward to seeing you all in person. And book now.
Reza, I thought when you were reaching back, I thought you were going to pull out an early release.
And here is a copy of the textbook. Now, I was closing the window because there's a noisy lawnmower outside my window. Very good. So we some events coming up. So Richard, thanks for posting the link to your book. I'd recommend you get it. And Doc wrote the foreword, so that's interesting. We're trying to encourage Doc to write the second edition of this book. But hey, he actually sent his apologies today. He says he's not well, and so we wish him a speedy recovery. He's got to recover by the time of IIW and Project VRM Day. There's a lot to do. We're working on a kind of a proof of concept demo for IIW. And if you want to get involved with that, that's a distributed RAG implementation. Shows you can have a RAG database and you can run it distributed across multiple devices. I'm going to show that as a proof of concept at IIW. If you want to participate in that, we've already got participation from Cryptid, from Cam and Dave, and I think Don as well. And then we've got one or two folks from Kwaai that are also developing that. Looking much farther forward, it's time to start planning for the summit, and we're going to have a summit in Q1, end of Q1. I think it's March 6th. It's going to be in Pasadena at the Southern California Linux Expo. This is where we had our last summit, and we're going to do that, and that'll become an annual thing. They want us to make it bigger than before. Remember, we had we programmed their AI track, but we had it in a kind of small room off to the side. They want us to take the big hall now, and we feel that we can fill that up. And so we've now got enough time. We've got 6 months to plan it, and we can make it bigger and better, and maybe get some sponsors. Maybe do a joint, the sort of loose federation of aligned AI organizations could all participate in that, not just Kwaai. So maybe, Richard, you want to consider GliaNet being there as well. We'll hit up AI 2030, and we're also talking to responsible.ai. So that might be a bigger federation of similarly aligned organizations. So let's give that some thought. Last time we did it extremely on the cheap. We begged, borrowed, and stole lots of stuff. Like they hosted us for free and so on. This time there's gonna be a budget, and I'll reach out to you, Richard, separately to talk about some planning. But we've already started to scope out what that summit would look like. Okay, let's wrap up here. We have an after party, which is a discussion session, and Myra's going to post the link, so that we typically in the after party we go deeper on one or two of the topics that were raised in the current in this meeting. Any more comments? Any questions before we wrap this one? I think Cam's got your hand up.
Just really quick, this is a cultural observation, and focused on people here in the United States. I have a prediction to make, and that is that people's understanding of what AI is today, basically a text interface into ChatGPT and stuff like that, is going to be completely reoriented by the Salesforce ads with Matthew McConaughey through the balance of the football season. If you've seen anything about Einstein, who is the poster child of Agentforce that Salesforce just released last month, you're going to see, I think, people sort of reframing their thinking about what AI is. And I would say it's sort of the first cultural meme around what AI agents are going to be like. And people are going to be talking about that over the holidays. Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, go have a look at Salesforce's AI initiative, Agentforce, and see what you think. It'd be good to have people come back to this call next week with some opinions on it. That'll be great. Okay, well, we're at the top of the hour. Thank you so much, and see you in the after party. Well,
you finished on time. Well done.
We did.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great weekend.